All right, my lovelies, welcome back to the last notes session you are going to have this semester. That's right, this is the last thing we're going to learn this semester, and it is called the quadratic formula. So far, we have been learning about quadratic equations like this. X squared, like a plus x squared plus bx plus c, something like that. Maybe x squared minus 3x plus 5. That's an example of a quadratic equation. So far we've learned about factoring, right? When you split it into two things like this, that's called factoring. And we've learned about a lot of things. We've learned about the zero product rule, all that stuff. So really, so far, we have only dealt with times when there's nothing in front of this x right here. So all of the problems we've done, there's been nothing in front of that. Well, this is a little bit different. There is going to be a number in front of this now, and we're not going to use factoring to solve it. So if we did solve this, we'd set it equal to 0, you would use factoring, set it equal to 0, and then split each one. Set this one equal to 0, and then set this one equal to 0. Okay, but you can do it if there's a number before here, but it's harder. So I'm going to teach you the quadratic formula. Okay, the quadratic formula is Okay, here we go. It is x equals negative b plus or minus. Remember, plus or minus means that it could be two positives or two negatives, and it's usually before a square root. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, that's a lot. But good news, there is a song, multiple songs to help you memorize this, and I've included those songs in the notes folder for today. So you can go and listen to those songs to help you memorize it. They're super easy and fun. I love those songs. That's how I memorize the quadratic formula. So I have the quadratic formula memorized, and I use those songs. So what do these letters even mean? Okay, let's figure this out. We're going to use our first example to figure it out. Okay, so let's say example 1. Example 1 is, let me get my thing up here, 2x squared minus 8x minus 24 equals 0. We have to solve this. What does solve mean? Well, remember when we tried to get the x by itself, so we just have x equals something? That's what we are trying to do here. So I'm going to use different colors. Let's just do blue, green, and black. So this is A. It's the first number. The negative 8 is B. Remember, it's a negative. Here, I'll put boxes around so that will help you. Positive 2 is A, negative 8 is B, and then negative 24 is the C here, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my formula. Negative B plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I'm going to fill in the information. So a negative b. Be careful here, okay? This b right here is already negative. So this means you have to have two negatives, okay? Basically the negative just means take the opposite of what it is. Okay, plus or minus radical b squared. B squared is negative 8. Well, b is negative 8. Square it. Minus 4 times two things. A, which was 2, and c, which was negative 24. All of this over 2 times a, which is 2. Okay. Here is the good news. That was hard, but now we just basically put it in our calculator. Not all of it, but one at a time. look at this part here. I'm going to underline it in orange. I'm going to circle it. That part there. A negative, two negatives make a positive. So I change it to a positive 8. Bring down my plus minus. 8 squared is 64. And then negative 4 times positive 2 times negative 24 is a positive 192. Okay, remember, I had a negative 4, a 2, and a negative 24. How many negatives do I have there? I have 2, which makes it into this positive. Then on the bottom, 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, keep going. 8 plus or minus square root. 64 plus 192. That is 256. Okay, and then 4 goes on the bottom again. We're just taking it one step at a time. 8 plus or minus. What is the square root of 256? Is it a perfect square? Yes, it is. Try it in your calculator. It is 16. Okay, here's where we break it up. Right here. You see we have a plus or a minus, right? So we're going to break it up into 8 plus 16 over 4 and 8 minus 16 over 4. Then we simplify. 8 plus 16 divided by 4 is 6. Do that in your calculator. 8 minus 16 divided by 4 is negative 2. So, just like we did with the factoring, we had 2 answers with factoring, one from each parentheses. Here we have 2 answers with the quadratic formula. One is 6 and one is negative 2. So, if I have 2 slots for answers in your assignment, you put 6 in one, you put negative 2 in the other. I know, it's a lot, okay? But as you practice, you'll get faster and faster with it. I promise you, okay? Let's try another example. This is example 2. Okay? This example 2 is x squared plus 3x equals negative 10. Or equals positive 10. Sorry, my bad. Okay. So, something is different about this equation. Up here, this equation has equals 0. We need to have equals 0. That is standard form. Remember, we always talk about standard form. So, equals 0 has to be on the right. So, how are we going to get this 10 over here? Well, it's positive, so we subtract it. So, we subtract it to the other side. And now we have x squared plus 3x minus 10 equals 0. Okay, so you might have to move some things around in order to get it to say equals 0, but it has to look like this. It has to look like this. Must be standard form. It must be. All right, so now we can start. I'm going to go a little bit faster. This is our A, or I'll do it in lowercase. A is 1, right? There's an invisible 1 there. So A is 1, B is a positive 3, and C is this negative 10. So let's write our equation. X equals negative B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. All right, here we go. X equals negative B is 3, so negative 3, plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times A is 1 times C, which is negative 10. All over 2 times A was 1. All right, there we go. Keep going. Negative 3 plus or minus square root. 3 squared is 9. Then we have a -4, a +1, and a -10. -4 times 1 is -4. -4 times -10 is -40. Or +40, sorry. Two negatives make a positive. Okay, over 2 times 1 is just 2. Keep going. -3 plus or minus, that will be 49 over 2. Keep going. If you need to pause this video while you catch up, you can. The square root of 49, is it a perfect square? Think back to your perfect square numbers. The square root of 49 is 7. So yes, it is a perfect square. Okay, split it up. -3 plus 7 over 2, -3 minus 7 over 2. I got that from right here. That positive negative thing. You split it up, then you do each one. Do it in your calculator. -3 plus 7 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. -3 minus 7 is -10, divided by 2 is -5. So, for this problem, our two answers are 2 and -5. Okay, you might say, okay, I'm just thinking of a question that you might ask. Miss Powers, as soon as I plug this in, okay, as soon as I plug this right here in to the problem, can I just put it all in my calculator? You could, okay, but I would not advise it. I would not advise it unless you have like a very fancy calculator that we use at school. Once you get down here, you can, okay, but remember you have to split it up still. -3 plus square root of 49 over 2, -3 minus square root of 49 over 2. But really what I would do is I would take it all the way. Really, it's just 2 or 3 more steps, so it's not really a big deal. But I would try to work it as far down as you can, and then if you really need to put it into your calculator at the end, you can. At this point, you definitely can. I don't care about that. Okay, but try to do it as much by hand as you can. We have one more example, example 3. And this one is -8x squared minus 4x plus 5 equals 0. All right, let's label. -8 is our A. Oops. -4 is the B. And +5 is the C. Formula. -b plus or minus radical b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, let's plug it in. Okay, remember, this is a negative already, this 4, and you're putting it into another negative, so 2 negatives make a positive. I'm going to skip that step and just turn it into a +4. Okay, plus or minus radical b squared, so -4 squared minus 4 times two things, a, which is -8, and c, which is +5, all over 2 times a, which is -8. Okay. Let's keep it going. We've plugged it in. So we have our +4 plus or minus square root. -4 squared is 64. Then we have a -4, -8, and a 5. So that would be -4 times -8, which is a +32. And then 32 times 5, 160. All over -2 times, or 2 times -8, sorry, is -16. We keep going. X equals 4 plus or minus. Add those things together inside 64 plus 16. Oh, I'm sorry. I did this wrong. 4 squared is 16. I just realized that. I'm so sorry. 4 squared is 16, not 64. That's 8 squared. My bad. So go fix that. Goodness gracious. Okay, 16 plus 160 is 176. Okay, keep your negative 16 on the bottom. All right, so this is where it gets a little tricky. 176 is not a perfect square. So it can't really come out. It can't simplify. So what we're going to do is we're still going to split it up for plus 167 over 16 and for minus 176 over 16. Okay, we're still splitting it up, but then what we're going to do is you're going to put it in your calculator and give me the decimal answers. Okay, so I'm going to get my calculator out right now. And we have 4 plus the square root of 176 divided by 16. And I got somewhere around 4.8-ish. Okay, now let's do the other side. 4 minus square root of 176 divided by 16. I got negative 0.58-ish. Okay, so this time when you have a box, I want you to put those two in it. Make sure you have them in decimal form when you put those in the box. So I know this was kind of a long note session, but this is the quadratic formula. I promise it looks terrible and long, and you might have to watch this video multiple times to figure it out, but it's really not that bad when you keep practicing over and over again with it, okay? I will probably maybe have a Zoom this week on quadratic formula if you really need help. Let me know if you need some help with it, and I will definitely help you out. Otherwise, feel free to ask me any questions. I believe you have 2 short, very, very, very short assignments. So go ahead and start working on those, and I will talk to you guys later.